Wonderful. So first of all, everyone, welcome. This is the first video conference of 2016 that is associated with Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans is the recorded online class. So there are 20 beginning lessons of I like to call it initiatory material, the level 1 material. And that is available on teachable.com. I'm telling you all of this because I'm about to launch into this lecture and tell you all about things that students which have enrolled in the class are already prepared for. Like they have had access to the recorded materials, which are like the homework. And so they'll be a little bit more prepared for what I'm speaking about. There is tuition involved in enrollment for Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. However, because the information that I would like to share is so important and vital for humanity to have access to right now, these video conferences that are like the class lectures, I have opened up as an interactive webinar to everyone on Facebook, because I understand that even if you are not fully enrolled in the class, I would still like for you or for everyone to have access to this information. What is the information that is so very vital and interesting? It is this shape. This shape is called the flying rainbow lasagna. And usually you see a static image of it, a static or two-dimensional image of it. This gives me an opportunity to show it to you as a sculptural form and to teach all about how you can transform your ordinary toroidal or donut-shaped energy centers into the shape of a flying rainbow lasagna. Why, Aurora, is this so crucial and important for people to know about right now? And the answer is because humanity and consciousness and the biosphere and the noosphere of Earth are facing a crisis right now. Let's define biosphere, meaning the collection of all living, organic, cellular life that is on Earth's surface. And noosphere, this is spelled Noosphere, that is the collection of all thoughts or consciousness that exist on, or throughout Earth. So the planet has different layers of being. And what is happening right now is the culmination of thousands of years of, we could call it difficulties or crisis, that essentially what we are right now, this body, is not what we were intended to be. We are not in our intended format. We have been, or humanity has been, genetically degraded. And it is now time to rectify the situation. And the degradation took place at the end of what is known as the civilization of Atlantis, like a semi-mythical remembering of really a time before humanity's amnesia began. It is a time before humanity had our entire genetic structure changed and levels of consciousness degraded. So this is what this is all about. Right now on Earth, with your body, you have the capacity to transcend death, transcend disease, live for as long as you wish to live in a state of total vitality, and eventually to ascend. And I'm going to get into my whiteboard and actually draw what I'm speaking about when I say ascend. But the point is, the program, the belief system that you've been programmed with up until this point has been part of the limitations or the bars on your cage of consciousness, not only limiting your physical structure, like limiting the function of your physical body, but also inhibiting your consciousness. And the way to rectify the situation is to add an additional dimension, add an additional degree of freedom, and become a flying rainbow lasagna. We transform this shape, turn it so the camera can see it better, this shape into this shape. And you're here in my studio with me. These are some of my paintings behind me. Usually you see them in a flat format. This one right here, this is birth of a new dimension. This is birth of the flying rainbow lasagna. We see Earth splitting apart, and there is Earth's magnetosphere, which is ordinarily shaped like this, a toroid or a torus or a donut shape. And when we place this in a higher dimensional state, we get this shape. What do I mean by place something in a higher dimensional state? And this is also why it's so crucial for me to do these as video conferences where you can see me and I can actually use visual analogies, and we'll also get into drawing some of these pictures that I draw all the time. When I say that it is necessary to add an additional dimension, I usually use my hand as the example. If you were a little ant and you're walking across my hand, you are on the second dimension, a flat plane. And the way that you gain an additional dimension and gain an additional degree of freedom is by jumping off of the plane or folding the plane. So if you were a little ant, you had to walk across my hand, you'd have to go all the way from here, the beginning, the middle, to the end. But if we can add an additional dimension, then we can fold this plane. And now the ant doesn't have to walk very far at all to get to the other side. Well, I like to say that humanity is stuck to the surface of time. You wake up in the morning and you have your breakfast, then you have lunch, then you have dinner, and you cannot skip directly from breakfast to dinner. However, if you add an additional degree of freedom, you can bend and fold and twist and warp the fabric of, let's call it, space, time, and consciousness. Because science talks about the fabric of space and time, but is totally unprepared to add in the additional variable of consciousness. Science is not prepared to measure consciousness or to measure the actions that awareness has on the experience. So this fabric that we're bending and folding, this is the fabric of space, time, and consciousness. Let's get into this shape. This is the shape of the chakras of your body. What are chakras? Chakras are spinning wheels of energy. This comes from ancient Sanskrit. The culture that created these ancient Sanskrit vocabulary words are one of the places where information from the worldwide sophisticated antediluvian culture known as Atlantis were kept. Like there were places where that information from that culture was safeguarded and handed down over many, many generations, because otherwise it would have been lost. So the tradition of the Far East that speaks about the chakras and prana, the life force energy that flows through those chakras like water wheels or like interlocking gears, that's one culture that upheld some of this information from very long ago. Tibetan Buddhists are another culture that upheld this long ago information. The Mayans of South America also, the ancient Egyptians also. So you will find little tidbits sprinkled throughout the ancient world that all speak to this. This information that I'm giving you right now is like becoming numerically literate. Imagine if you did not know what numbers were and you didn't know how to do basic math like addition and subtraction. You would be very easily taken advantage by others who do know about numbers and do know about mathematical structure. Well, right now, most people are illiterate when it comes to the non-physical world. The world, like I can touch my face, my physical face, but what about the non-physical energy presence? This is what I'm talking about, that science is not prepared to recognize consciousness as a level of awareness. So first up, let me bring up a picture and do a little bit of talking on the picture. Thank you for bearing with me while I work with technology, because I think I have things pretty well set up so I can find what I need. Okay, good. Wonderful. This is a detail from the painting that's over here to my right that is called Ascension 2012. And what you're looking at here is one depiction of the chakra system and the anthropomorphic figure as well. So, yes, I can notate on top of here. Let me just choose a color that you can actually see. Wonderful. Ooh, there we go. Okay. So this I'm outlining now. This is what I call the anthropomorphic figure. You know, 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head, right? All around the anthropomorphic figure, there's this energetic matrix or context within which we find ourselves. You are not just a physical being that exists in a vacuum or in a contextless realm. You are absolutely connected. And I'm not just speaking about your physical presence connected to the physical realm. I'm speaking about your non-physical presences, which are connected to other aspects of consciousness. So If students who are in the class, who have done their homework, already know exactly what I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to go through it pretty quickly for everyone else who is just tuning into this webinar and is being exposed to the idea of chakras for the first time. And this is all backstory so that you can understand the flying rainbow lasagna. That's why I have the course set up, because it became very apparent to me that in order to really understand this, this is like understanding, you know, advanced level physics. First, you have to understand basic physics. And so in what we're really talking about here is non-physics, not the physics, the laws that govern merely the physical world, but these are the laws that govern the non-physical world. So first, I'm going to tell you about this non-physical world, and I didn't make this up. I'm so flattered when people look at my artwork and they think, look at all of that stuff that Aurora invented. The truth is, I perceive it. I do not invent it. I invented this, but all of this language, I did not invent. It is the interdimensional language of color, line, shape, form, movement, texture, and tone. And tone is like musical tone. And I had to add that in because when I first started to perceive this information from the cosmos, it came to me very much through visual understanding. And as I've grown, it has also come to me as auditory understanding, the understanding that this is also harmonics. It's visual and it's auditory. It's a vibratory language. So back to this picture that I'm drawing your attention to. There are 7 levels to reality in this language that I'm describing here. There are also an uncountable number of levels of reality that go even further down and even further up. So what we're talking about is the octave. Octave is 8 notes. This is the octave of what it is to be human. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, white light. Although on the piano, that would be going back to red. Starting on this painting, we begin at the base of the spine. So I'm just very, very roughly highlighting where that is on the body. That is the red chakra. It's the primary chakra. It's the connection to the physical realm. It's your physical body, and it's everything that we can see and touch with our 5 senses. However, you are not merely a physical body. If we move up from there at the level of, this is below your belly button. In the Far East, it is known as your aura, your hara. It is an energy center. It is where you have your guts, your instinct, your intuition. It is also analogous to the mammalian level of emotions and the mammalian level of the cerebral cortex. So if we were speaking about evolutionary biology, the first chakra is just kill or be killed, basic survival, being here, all right? And it's also analogous to the reptilian mind and the reptilian approach to life. Kill or be killed. Can it be eaten? Can it be mated with? Those are the only questions in the mind at that level. And when we get up to the level of orange, we get up to the level of mammalian mitigation of those basic desires. So in your brain, when you have the basic brain stem and then the cerebral cortex that grows on top of there, that's known as the mammalian brain. And that is where we have emotions such as affection, attraction, the desire to hug and care for and nurture. It's where we also, sorry, I have to get my stylus, dropped my little pen. We also have emotions such as hatred and revulsion and rejection. And it's important, an important level to get to that level because it is the level of cooperation and collaboration. We move from being kill or be killed reptiles into being let's all collaborate and work together as a community mammals, because mammals learned that you get more done when you work together as a group. All right, then when we get up to the next level, we are at the level of the solar plexus. So this would be above your belly button, but below the level of your chest. And that is known as the human mind, the human mind. Humans didn't create this mind. It's totally a hacked operating system, but it is installed into humanity. And it's where you have your daily conscious waking intellect. It's the level of the ego. And for many, many years, thousands of years, this was the totality of what the human experience was defined as. You're a physical body with some mammalian emotions and a little bit of human ego on top of there that mitigates your desire to kill or be killed or mate with anything that you see. And in your brain, the human level, the level of yellow, would be analogous to the extremely convoluted surface of your brain, where most of what science describes as conscious waking thought occurs. And it's the area of the brain that humans use to define us as humans. All right, it's the human mind. However, that is not the totality of who and what you are as a being. You have this entire higher level of the spectrum that has not been explored. So let's go through it very quickly. The level of the heart, unconditional love, right here, right at the level of the chest. This is not an airy-fairy new age ideal. It is not about wanting to to hug or marry or procreate with or have romance with anything. It is not that. That's down at the level of mammalian emotions. We are talking now about cosmic love, unconditional love, love of pure acceptance. And really, this area of your body, of energetic anatomy, acts like a clearinghouse or a hub or a central processing unit through which all impulses and all energy and all knowledge must pass. So information coming from the above and into you must pass through your heart in order to get into the physical realm. And likewise, information coming from the physical realm going to the higher dimensional, non-physical, less dense realm also has to pass through the heart. Your heart is literally an instrument that makes a tone. Ah, my piano is not tuned to 432 hertz, but I will play for you a note over here that is. That's my resonant instrument over there. It is tuned to 432 hertz. When we resonate at the level of unconditional love, it means we are making a tone of equal giving and receiving with the cosmos. When we sit in meditation and we are not either grasping for the future or holding on to the feelings that you had in the past, that is when we are creating the tone of unconditional love. It is literally an energetic tone, all right? Not merely an ideal, and does not have to do with romance. And we cultivate that tone because that produces what would be considered like the gas that makes our vehicle go. And the vehicle has to do with this, the higher faculties. So this unconditional love is like a whirling vortex of energy. And yes, it's shaped exactly like one of these. I hope that you can see as I highlight in here. This is the shape that is at the center of your heart. And here's that same shape. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4 of these lovely lobe shapes. But really, in that negative space, and I'll do this more on camera so you can see it more, we really have this shape. Don't let me get distracted here because we are at the level of the heart. But on top of the heart, we have the throat. It's the level of truth, communication. And this is where information impulses get either clothed with words or they are removed. Words are removed and it becomes an abstract energetic impulse so that it can move up to here. This is the eye of wisdom. It's known as your Christ consciousness, but it has nothing to do with the Christian religion. I'm sorry that we cannot name it something more neutral, like the 1, 2, 3, 4 consciousness, so that no one would have an association with the religion, because this is a part of your body. Everybody has this body part. It is not only for certain people with certain belief systems that go to a church on Sunday. Everybody has this chakra or energy center on your body. It is analogous to these two perceivers that we use to see the physical world, but it is what we use to see the non-physical world. All of this that is around us in the non-physical world, which is time. We'll get into that. I'll do that just finishing up very quickly. This is not the end of the journey though. When you get up to this level of your chakras, so you have raised your energy, you have raised your kundalini like a spiral all the way up, You got it up to here, but that's not the end of the journey. You have to get all the way up to the crown. When you do that, that is how you connect to the source of consciousness, the source of all energy, higher consciousness. It is how you get ideas and vital life force energy. It is how you are reinvigorated with everything that you need in order to live. So humans have a diminished contact through the crown chakra. It's not completely cut off. When we first come here as infants, I'm just gonna go back so that you can see my face a little bit better. Thank you. And when we first come here as infants, there's a soft spot on the top of the head called the fontanelle, and that represents the continued connection to the higher dimensional world. And as little infants grow their ego, their yellow chakra, they grow their sense of self and individuality, and they sense that they are being separated from the oceanic consciousness. This is the connection to the oceanic consciousness, the totality, and develop an ego, and then eventually this connection is diminished. But it is not completely cut off, because that's where we get our connection to heal our bodies, to make new cells, like new skin cells or new bone cells. It's where we get our energy to procreate and make life, and our sexual energy comes from. It's where we get new ideas, like new music, new artwork, new any kind of apparatus that you create. It all comes from the above. So just one moment, I need to have a little drink here. You have 7 layers of your being, and that's what these figures are right here. I hope you can see there's a human figure there with 7 layers, and I have more extensive paintings that show these chakras and exactly how they interlock. In the recorded materials, I also go into the exact proportions of how your chakras interlock. Actually, something I said I was going to show you my face again, but I'm going to show you another sketch so that you can see these interlocking chakra proportions much better. And understand that lesson 1 of the recorded lesson is all about this. So your chakras have a pattern to them, just like light waves have a pattern to them. This pattern is known as harmonics, the idea that waves which fit together in proportional intervals are considered to be beautiful and are considered to be music. When we have sound waves in proportional harmonic intervals, it sounds beautiful, as opposed to which sounds like noise. This pattern that you're looking at is the non-physical harmonic pattern of your body, and it is made of time. Now let me go to a whiteboard. All right, cool. I'm going to draw now the shorthand that I usually use to represent time, and I call it the time vortex. So it's a very simple shape where we have, this is year 0, and this is, let's say, year 100. And this is where you begin, and you move upward through time by moving upward along the scale. And I usually draw these little timelines that travel from down here and they go up to the top, down here and they go up to the top. So you can understand there are all these parallel lines, but this is a simplified shorthand, because what I'm really drawing is the bottom quadrant of this shape. And this shape is 4 vortices, and it is also the same as this shape. So when I'm drawing this time vortex, I am drawing this, the bottom vortex of this shape, 1/4 of one of your chakras, all right? And this is 3-dimensional, and this is a simplified cross-section. And the timelines that I am drawing as going up from the bottom and up to the top, in reality, they don't do that. In reality, they spiral. They go around like this, all right? But it is much more difficult for me to accurately draw sketches with the spirals like that. So I'm drawing them as if they're straight lines, but we're all agreeing that that is a agreed upon fiction and that they're actually spirals. And this is the refinery of your life, okay? You are born right down here. And this happens, this is true of every single one of us. We start at the beginning, we are born, and we die almost instantaneously. That's what this outer edge of the chakra is. If this is analogous to an old-fashioned analog record, I'm a relic from a previous century, and I'm drawing a record. And if you're new, then you might not recognize what this is. They have plenty of records now. But the idea is, this is a record. We're looking at it from the top down, and the song that is on the record is a long groove that spirals from the outer periphery and then gets closer and closer and closer to the spindle in the center. And this is what you are doing with consciousness in exploring your life. Your life is like a choose your own adventure novel where you get to explore the various iterations. Iterations are possible combinations. If I do this, what happens? If I do this, what happens? So each one of us, we are born and we die instantaneously because we didn't even know how to live for a minute. Then what happens is, now I'm going to highlight in red, what I am drawing in red is a membrane. This is a flowing membrane, like a waterfall. It is constantly moving. So when this little blue dot gets up to this flowing waterfall, it is washed away. It is washed down in this direction. Another way of thinking about it, it is like taking a sweater or something that is crocheted or knitted, just taking one of the threads and pulling on it until it unknits the entire sweater. And that's what happens. The sweater of you gets unknitted by the membrane of death. You circulate back around and then you start again. Except this time you start in a groove that is slightly closer to the center, slightly away from the periphery. You explore slightly different iterations. Maybe you live for one day and then circulate back to the beginning. 1 week, 2 weeks, on and on and on. And this, it's not just happening on one side, it's happening on both sides of the time vortex. So let's say, you know, by the time you're 18, you have died and been reborn countless times within your own life. This is the refinery of consciousness, because these chakras on your body, they are meant to be in perfect alignment like this, but often they are askew like this. And when they are askew, what that means is you are experiencing these peripheral timelines as opposed to the central timeline. Let's choose a cool color for the central timeline. How about purple? This line that I am drawing right here, and I always show it heading to infinity. This is the path of least likelihood. I call it least likelihood because there is only one little tiny timeline that is at the center of this. You could call it, it's like a target, like an arrow, like a bullseye. There's only one tiny little exit to get out of this reality. And you can also see over here where I drew this line, over here where I drew the line, the membrane of death doesn't meet. There's a little gap. See, yeah, there's that little gap right there. That is the exit out of this level of reality. This is this level of density. This time vortex that I'm drawing here is this level of reality. So if you are familiar with the brilliant comedic film Groundhog's Day with Bill Murray, it's a profound movie and it's also very funny. But basically the main character has to keep on reliving the same day over and over, but making different choices each day until finally he gets to get out of that day by choosing the right combination of choices. And he also becomes a different person through his journey. He makes better choices that are more humane. And this is what we are all doing by going through this time vortex, that as we die and are reborn, die and are reborn, die and are reborn, we are learning life lessons and being refined. They're not just the life lessons of like how not to die as an infant, because we have to learn that. We have to learn how not to die of infectious disease or fall down the stairs or, you know, have your mom or dad or brothers or sisters kill you. Like those are basic lessons of how to be alive. But then after we learn, you know, the steep learning curve of how to have a body and be in the physical world, we have to learn what are the values that we promote? What are the choices that we make? What leads to continued life and continued consciousness? This timeline, that is the purple timeline here, this is the timeline of continued consciousness in the very same way that meditators of the Far East, like the Karmapa, the 17th Karmapa, it's a very special person in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, and he is the 17th time that he has exited a body through the little wormhole up here at the top and consciously entered into another body without breaking continuity. He can remember who he was in previous existences. And this is the idea that we all have access to this. First of all, this what I'm drawing here, this graphic depiction should give you incredible hope, because it means that programmed in on a deep level, no matter what, each one of us has this possibility. Just like if you have a record, the record has that little hole so it can go on the record player and be spun around. It's not possible to have a record or a life without having that little wormhole where you can exit this shell or this level of excitation. When I say shell, I'm actually referring to the subatomic realm. The electron shell, let's draw a little picture here. Here we have the nucleus of an electron, the nucleus of an atom. And then surrounding it, we have different electron shells. And these are different levels of excitation that a subatomic particle can have. And when you're over here on this level of excitation, you have to make the quantum leap to get up to the next level. You can't go like, I'm here, then I'm halfway there, and then I finally get there, I'm all the way there. You cannot do that. What you have to do, if you're a little electron, you have to live here at this level of the shell and save your energy in your energy banks and get really, really, really excited. It's called excitation. And then at a certain moment, you're so excited, you jump to the next level. And then you get to exist up here on the next electron shell. That is what is happening in the refinery of your life. You are like a tiny little subatomic particle that is trying to get from this level of your electron shell up to this level of the next electron shell. All right? We are trying to get out of this level of consciousness. It is the level of duality. We'll get into duality. It is the level of having a physical existence where you have to eat physical food and you face physical death. So now I hope I'm getting through. When I speak about the previous antediluvian worldwide sophisticated culture where no one had to die because everybody had an active third eye. Everybody had their chakra up here totally open, and they were connected to higher consciousness. These two aspects of anatomy work together. They work together in exactly the same way that a helicopter has both blades, helicopter blades that stick out from the top. Here's the helicopter's body, and also a rotor that is at the back of the helicopter that is perpendicular to it. Here's the rotor blades. And those two, you have chakras that are spinning at this orientation. You also have chakras that are spinning at this orientation. And that creates a gyro-stabilizing effect. Gyro-stabilizing mean you're not going to wobble and wiggle. If we're talking about a helicopter, we're talking about gyro-stabilizing as it flies through the atmosphere. And if we're talking about you being gyro-stabilized, we're talking about stabilizing your trajectory through time. As you fly through time, I'm circling now this big, time vortex, that instead of your chakras wobbling like this, as you explore these peripheral areas of the time vortex, your consciousness is in alignment with the source of consciousness. This is how we didn't have to die. You only have to die when you can't see and you hit the membrane of death. This is a flowing membrane. This is constantly, look, I'm making an arrow, flowing in this direction, flowing, flowing, flowing in this direction. And you don't have to do this whole explore every single iteration and circulate back if you can see. So now, let me just draw what your eyeball looks like. On the back of your eyeball, you have the fovea. This is dark spot here, and that is your focal point. And then you have the periphery, and you have many fewer, receptor cells in the periphery than you do in the focal point. And that is what is happening in the time vortex, this diagram of your life. You have the focal point, which is where your awareness is. Your awareness is like the needle on the record. Here, I'm making a dot here on this record picture. So you can imagine your awareness is like the needle on the record, and it determines which part of the song of your life is being played. You don't actually have to put the needle of your awareness on this part of the song over here. That part of the song might be where you crash your car into a brick wall and die in a horrible way. You don't have to explore that. That can be explored here in the periphery. You're not really seeing it. but you have a general sense of motion. So what I'm trying to say, in your physical eyeball, when we explore something in the periphery, we get a sense of there's something there, there's something moving, but we don't see all of the exact details. And in our lives, when we explore these peripheral iterations, we can get a sense that something is happening, but we don't have to experience it in all of its detail. So I like to say sometimes, you know, when you might have a close call accident, like you're driving down the road, I'm just gonna show you my face again. You're driving down the road and you think, I'm just going out to get some milk very quickly, and you have a close call, and then you make it back home, you're making your coffee, you're putting the milk in it, and you think, wow, on all of these other peripheral timelines, I didn't make it back here. I'm smashed up on the highway, or, you know, in an ambulance going to a hospital or something like that. And first of all, we can use this in order to express gratitude. I'm so happy that I am here on this timeline, as opposed to the peripheral timelines where I'm not here. And we can also consciously receive information from those peripheral versions of ourself. And I've had many conversations with people when I talk about these concepts with them, where they will tell me harrowing stories where they can say, I remember making the choice where I could literally see the splitting of the timelines and myself dead in a dumpster on that other timeline. This is one example of a friend who said she was at a truck stop and this person was, she needed a ride. This seemingly nice person was offering her a ride, and she was like, oh yeah, I'll meet you out, you know, by your car in 5 minutes. And she said she went into the bathroom and she literally could sense that if she went and did that, it would go horribly awry. And so of course she ran away and she didn't do it. This is what I'm speaking about. It's not merely your imagination. These are literally peripheral aspects of self which are sending feedback to you as the central experiencer in your life. So now I want to do a couple of things. I want to say to you, I spoke about the time vortex as being this bottom quadrant, this right here on this diagram. But you can see you've got this vortex here, and this vortex here also. Those are 3 other lives that are intertwined with and arranged with this life. You need to understand this is the beginning of having a multidimensional perception and understanding of who you are. You are not just this person living this life. You are also living many other lives, and you do not live them one after another in a linear fashion. You live them all concurrently at the same time. So let me save you all a lot of money. If you were ever going to pay someone to give you a reading for your past lives, save you some money and give it to you right now for free. You have all been everyone. We have all been everyone. We are all concurrently being everyone. This means you have been the worst, most unrecalcitrant sinner or raving maniac or, you know, mass murderer, and you've also been the greatest hero or heroine, the greatest noble person, the greatest person who has helped and healed all of humanity and the earth. You've been all of that. It is all part of the overarching time vortex that you are experiencing. Just checking the time to make sure I have plenty of time to talk about the lasagna. We need to talk about the lasagna. So basically what I've said to you so far, energetic anatomy. You have chakras. These are chakras that are arranged up and down your body. And I've also now explained to you that they are made of time. I'm going to give you some more integument. The idea that your DNA is not just a blueprint that determines the shape of your eyes or the color of your hair. Your DNA is a bridge of light that bridges the realm of possibilities and the realm of experienced reality. So I also have to talk a little bit about the Flying Rainbow Lasagna as a boundary dissolving tool. Because when we first came here as infants, we had an oceanic consciousness. We did not have the concept of time, past, present, and future. We lived in the now. And this is very similar to animals. Animals are very beautiful and they don't have this yellow level of the conscious intellect. They have a different type of intellect and a different type of understanding. And they are still very connected to the above and higher consciousness. Humans with this hacked operating system have the capacity to spread out our minds over time. Even though I'm right now in this moment at, let's see what time it is. I'm at 640, but I could be thinking about 2 years ago. I could be projecting and anticipating forward into 10 years into the future. This is the human mind that allows us to think about time. However, it also causes us to disperse our consciousness as opposed to focusing our consciousness in everything that we are here in this moment right now. And that is what unconditional love is, okay? So the flying rainbow lasagna is how you can add an additional dimension and add an additional degree of freedom to the events of your life by rearranging your genes, all right? Your genes are not just the determiners of whether you have attached or separate earlobes or how many teeth you have in your mouth or something like that. Your genes actually determine what you will be experiencing in your life. So this is basic stuff. Identical twins do not develop identical diseases. They don't have identical lives either. And that's because of the element of consciousness, decisions, the choose your own adventure novel of your life. If you choose to grow a tumor, turn to page 5. If you choose not to grow a tumor, turn to page 7. Those choices express what science calls epigenetics, meaning the code that rules the code. So when genes were first discovered, rather, in the 1950s, everyone was a genetic fatalist. They said, it's written in your code, therefore it has to happen. Science later became more sophisticated and now understands that even if you have programmed into your genes the potential for growing a nasty tumor, you don't necessarily have to manifest it. Plenty of identical twins do not manifest the nasty tumor, but some of them do. And the reason for this is epigenetics. So at the basic level, okay, now we're getting into my very sophisticated visual aid, my pipe cleaners, all right? At the subcellular level, your genes are not static X-shaped chromosomes as they are often presented in science class. They are constantly moving and twisting and vibrating strings, all right? Because first of all, DNA is supercoiled. That means that if I took this, I twisted and twisted and twisted, if I twisted even more and even more and even more, it would end up in these incredibly complex knotted shapes that are necessary to make the DNA compact enough so that the cell can replicate, so that it can split itself in half in mitosis. But for most of the time, inside of the cell, your genes are unfurled, and how tightly they are coiled depends or denotes whether they can be read. Let me actually show you on my fingers. So if they're very, very, very tightly coiled, they're like a spring, and these are all, elements of the spring. And the RNA messengers, they can't get into the little grooves in order to read those pages of the blueprint. And if those pages say, here's how to grow a cancerous tumor, that's a good thing because it means the RNA can't find out how to grow a tumor. If this aspect of your DNA is not tightly coiled, and this has to do with a chemical process called methylation, then it's like the spring is relaxed and unfurled. And now the little RNA messengers can get on in there and read what's going on. And that's very good news if these are the pages of your book that talk about how to dismantle a tumor or how to extend and have wonderful infinite health and infinite vitality. So what I'm trying to say to you with so many, many words is your genes are raw material. They are not static, and they can be edited or changed in their expression. And that is done through belief system and programming. So I say to people, tune into this webinar if you would like to learn how to transform into a flying rainbow lasagna. The first part of the step is gaining new information. The belief system of genetic fatalism is a program. If it's in your genes, you can't do anything about it. That's a program. But then now we're able to change that program. If it's in your genes, you actually can do something about it because of epigenetics. Now let's go further. Let's actually use our steering wheel of our mind in order to consciously choose which aspect of our genes we would like to exacerbate. Now I'm going to bring up some more pictures for you, but then I'm also going to show you on my incredibly fantastic pipe cleaners first. So ordinarily you have your DNA that is twisted like a double helix like this. But for a certain portion of it, in order to be replicated, your DNA is split apart. And that is kind of opens it up into a loop like this. And ordinarily, it would not be possible for you to have all of your genes opened up into a loop like this. That would be very unstable. You'd probably turn into a pile of goo. But you can use the flying rainbow lasagna structure to stabilize those genes so that now this little loop gets held open. And this is your DNA. Your DNA follows the edge of your genes around this edge, down over here, and up over here, okay? I know that's pretty rough and ready, but you're getting the idea of what I'm talking about, that edge is where your DNA follows. And now we're gonna use the two-dimensional aspect of what cameras do in order to show that to you. I hope you can look at this and you can see how this front edge makes, here I'm holding it just right, the front edge makes one aspect of the DNA double helix, and the back edge makes the other aspect of the DNA double helix, okay? Here's the cross, here's the cross. We have one loop going around this edge, and we have one loop going around the back edge. Now I show you pictures. Right here, all prepared, totally organized, wonderful. Okay, this is a computer graphic that I created here, where you can see what I'm talking about. The idea that ordinarily, looking for a color so you can see what I'm drawing here. Ordinarily, these proteins, these amino acids, can only dance with their dance partners that are directly across from them. This guy has to partner up with this person over here, and this person over here has to partner up with this person over here. This is like saying you don't get to rewrite what's happening. You don't get to write a new dance movement. However, with the flying rainbow lasagna, we can have a new dance movement where this black dot over here, this guy that I just drew, he can now dance with this person over here. And this person over here can now dance with this person over here, because we are able to turn the flying rainbow lasagna, instead of just this person over here with this person over here, right? We can now go this way. We can go across this way. Ooh, this person can now dance with this person. I hope I'm getting there with you on this. It is the idea that the flying rainbow lasagna, I say, flying rainbow lasagna adds an additional dimension, and it adds an additional degree of freedom. And what that means is, like the little ant that had to walk across my hand to get from here to here, doesn't have to walk all the way across if you can bend and fold, all right? If you can bend and fold your genes, it's like having a pencil with an eraser. You can edit out, erase out things that you don't want to have expressed, and rearrange and write in the things you do wish to have expressed. I use as an analogy, if I have a pencil with an eraser, or if I have the capacity to endlessly repeat or erase letters from a book, from a novel, I could take anything. I could take the 2004 handbook for the Chevy Malibu, and I could translate and rearrange those letters and those words into a masterpiece. It could be James Joyce's Ulysses. It could be Shakespeare. It could be anything, if I have a pencil with an eraser. So now we're looking at each one of us has a genetic code that is like potential. It's been changed, it's been degraded from what it was intended to be, you know, in ancient Atlantis. And for thousands of years, it has created suffering and difficulties here on Earth. And the flying rainbow lasagna is the new tool that was invented that will allow you to ascend. You don't have to hit the membrane of death. You don't have to go through every single iteration. You can reactivate your higher faculties, rearrange your genes, and get through that wormhole that is at the very top of the time vortex and get out of this level of reality. Flying rainbow lasagna is one aspect of rearranging your genes. Or let's say, when we flying rainbow lasagna on a genetic level, it changes you on a non-physical level, and it changes Earth, and it changes the sun, and it changes It changes so much. So let me actually, I'll go back and I'll show you some more pictures too, of more of DNA. But I also wanted to show you on here the movement of the flying rainbow lasagna. I showed how this can be used as like a placeholder inside of your genes. This violet part of the flying rainbow lasagna is constantly in motion. It is constantly jumping back and forth or oscillating, and that is what makes this shape occur. So now let's get back into this shape. This is like step 1, and this is like step 2. Step 1, create a chakra. And this is created by the motion of energy being emanated from this place right here and returning to this place right here. And this place right here is the source. It is the 0th dimension. It is infinity. You could think of it as God. It is the presence of all energy, the presence of all particles, the presence of all possibilities, the presence of all probabilities. It is the center of the donut hole. And everything is there because everything is circulating. Everything is passing through there. So if I use, you can see this circle as a very good example here in front of my face. A particle that is here, right out here at the periphery, is also in here at the singularity. It is in 2 places at once. You say, Aurora, how can that be? That doesn't make sense. Tell me more about this. I need to know more. Okay, so science defines the singularity as a place at the center of a black hole, a place where all of the laws of physics, the laws of the physical realm, break down, and the presence of everything, the presence of all energy, all matter, all everything. And by its very definition, it can only be single. There can only be one of it. And I like to say it's infinity. It is the infinite dimension where you do not have to, if you were sending someone a letter, you would not have to address the letter, because you could say, address it to infinity. I'm there. Everyone is there. Everything is there. This is where we are before we are here. All right? This is where we came from as consciousness. It's where we came from in terms of time before we came to be here at 6:49 on this day in June. We are also all going to circulate back to this place. It is our source or our origin. It is also our destination. So if a particle is out here, it's out here because it was emanated from in here. And a particle that's out here, if it is conscious and if it's self-aware, it can say, I'm out here, but I also know that I'm in here. And this is how we begin to make the flying rainbow lasagna shape. When this shape, this dot in here, I know this sculpture is yellow, but I usually make it a violet dot. When this dot over here gets to jump up here, oops, let's make it jump up here, and then jump down here, and then jump up here, and jump down here, it makes this shape. And remember, I just defined the singularity as it is single by its definition. But you look at this shape and you say, Aurora, that's not allowed because there's singularity down here and a singularity up here. How is that allowed? And I say, it's bending the rules, but not breaking them, because it's one singularity that is jumping up and down so fast. It's as if it is in 2 places at the same time. So now here's the profound realization. I have a singularity inside of me. Actually, each one of our chakras, each one of the energy systems that is shaped like this has a singularity at its center. And I just went through extensive explanation of how we have at least 7 chakras. So we have at least 7 singularities. Every single cell, physical cell of your body, has in its nucleus a connection to the divine, to the singularity. Every single cell in your body, every single atom in your body has a connection to the singularity. The planet that you're on at its very core has a connection to the singularity. The sun that you're standing under has a connection to the singularity, as does every single star, as does every single molecule and every single atom that make up all of those stars. So this is like saying there are an almost uncountable number of doors, but all of those doors lead to the same room, and that room is called the singularity. So what that means is this singularity that is in me, And this singularity can be in something else. And they can oscillate back and forth as part of the same bridge of consciousness called the flying rainbow lasagna. So the flying rainbow lasagna is more than just a dance movement that you can perform on a subcellular level when you oscillate your genes. It is also a consciousness maneuver where you can combine your consciousness with anything else. So you can, it's a verb, flying rainbow lasagna with the earth or with the sun. I do that all the time. And I have a meditation. This meditation is part of lesson 5, how to flying rainbow lasagna with the sun. And basically, I create first this portion of the lasagna in me, and then send the singularity to the sun and create this portion of the lasagna. And then back to me for this, and then out to them for that. And there are 8 flanges of the lasagna, and we do it 8 times. So it's an oscillation back and forth 8 times. And what does that mean? That means that you are combining your consciousness with the sun, or with the planet, or with whatever you would like to combine your consciousness with. Let me show you just a few more pictures that I have prepared, because this has to do with showing you how to oscillate. Here we go. This is a good one. Wonderful. I already drew this in the past, but I hope that you can see this. The oscillation maneuver is not just, let's say, my pen along this axis, you know, jumping in and out. Like imagine your belly button jumping forward and then your belly button jumping backward. It's not just that. It's also jumping up and down like this. Imagine something jumping out the top of your head and then down through the bottom of your feet and then up through the top of your head again. And then it's also oscillating in this direction. Imagine side to side, like your hips shimmying side to side. And it gets even more complex because we can then do it around in this direction. You know, imagine this is spinning around in this direction. We can do it in the next level of highest dimension, which is spinning it around like this. So we begin to understand that this is oscillations along both the X, the Y, and the Z axes, and we can add in many other oscillations in order to increase the complexity to extreme levels. Let me show you one more picture that I have prepared that is about your genes. Here we go. So this is to show you your DNA and the way that it's coiled. Ordinarily, I'm drawing in red here now. Ordinarily, when your genes are supercoiled, they have this kind of like a spring, like a tunnel that is shaped like that. And we can use the flying rainbow lasagna to oscillate back and forth along this tunnel. And what that does is shifts the genes. So remember I was telling you, you can take your pencil with an eraser and edit your genes. When we shift back and forth, we can take a little bit of a snippet from here, and let's combine it with a snippet from here. Like imagine combining together 2 different recipes, like the recipe for chocolate souffle and the recipe for pizza. And we're going to take elements of chocolate souffle and combine it with elements of pizza, and then create a completely new dish based upon that. This is what you can do on a genetic level when you truly embrace and understand the profound nature of the flying rainbow lasagna. And go back to you being able to see me, and I'll show you one more thing, and then I'll open the floor to discussion here. The negative space within your chakra shape. First of all, the chakra shape is made by energy whirling and twirling amidst itself. This shape exists just like if I took a glass of water and I twirled my pencil in it, it would make a vortex shape that is made of nothing more than energy whirling and twirling amidst itself. This is the shape of time being whirled and twirled by consciousness, okay? And it is being organized into these shapes. When we, as organic multicellular organisms, conform to these shapes, we get to be alive. If you don't conform to these shapes, if you want to be going in this direction instead of in this direction, guess what? At a certain point, you will be dead. You don't get to be alive if you're not in the right shape. And this is only one aspect of this interdimensional language that we can actually add another layer, another dimension, another degree of freedom, and turn this understanding and experience of time into this understanding and experience of time. That means that we can contact the far distant past and contact the far distant future. This is a tool for dissolving boundaries. It is for dissolving the boundary of the ego. As I spoke earlier, the ego that diminished your connection to source. Your ego is the narrative story that separates you from your context. When you're a little baby, you touch yourself, I feel myself. You touch the crib, I don't feel the crib. You develop a sense of me versus the world. And your ego is the boundary that blocks out the rest of the world. And it's an artificial construct. It's a valuable level of development. However, it is not the final level of development. And what you can do is apply the flying rainbow lasagna so that now instead of having a boundary that separates you from the world, you can combine your inner realm with the outer realm, the realm of your emotions and your imagination and your dreams and your hopes and your desires and everything that is quote unquote inside becomes seamlessly combined with the world that is quote unquote outside, the world of hard-edged objects and seemingly externalized people. This is what I call birth of the new dimension. We are exiting the previous level of reality. We are jumping out of the previous level of excitation that we were at that electron shell. The level of excitation that states, this is objective materialism. This is the realm I can feel with my five senses. I only believe and navigate according to what my five senses tell me. That is a specific level of reality. And what we are able to do is get to the next level of reality where we understand how profoundly consciousness influences experience, because we can use the flying rainbow lasagna to dissolve the boundary of the ego. And all of a sudden, you become an artist creating reality with your mind, with your consciousness. You are no longer a passive doormat or a victim experiencing events that you are not participating in and creating. You are now a totally conscious, active participant and a divine mini co-creator. That is why I like to teach everyone about the flying rainbow lasagna. That is why I did not keep this as a proprietary secret only for me. Oh, I know we're at the end of the material here, but I forgot to tell you, for anyone who's new to this, I'm a walk-in, and the flying rainbow lasagna is the portal through which I came into this level of reality. And I came here to share it with everyone. I didn't come here to say, this is mine, and I'm the only flying rainbow lasagna and no one else can do it. No, 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 ha, 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 how silly. No, I came here specifically to share it with everyone as much as possible. Because if you are aware that right now there's the culmination of a crisis of consciousness or crisis of spirituality that has been ongoing since the end of Atlantis, since the degradation of the human genome. And humans are not separate from the planet. We are literally like an organ of Earth. And we are meant to express her beautiful dream and her beautiful desires. And because humans' genes have been squashed and degraded for a very long time, humans haven't been able to properly express the beautiful dream of Earth. When we use flying rainbow lasagna, all of a sudden, we don't have to be limited by objective materialism, by the expectations that have been programmed into our genes for thousands of years. We don't have to die. We can live in a state of total physical vitality. We can learn to eat pure sunlight. We don't have to have, your body is not a steam engine. It's not a combustion engine. It's supposed to be a clean burning solar furnace, and that we're supposed to not have intermediaries like plants and animals that we have to eat in order to exist. We're supposed to be able to exist on the pure consciousness that is emanated from the stars. And of course, we haven't been doing that for thousands of years. This is how we get back to doing that. So I recognize it is pretty much 5 minutes past 7. So it's time for me to end the recording, but I'm now going to open the floor to discussion and comments.